This is News Desk with me, Bernice Abubedu. Thanks for staying on. Today, Ghana is joining other African states to commemorate African Union AU Day today. We are Africa. That's the theme for this year's celebration. On 25th May 1963, leaders of 32 independent African states met to form the Organization of African Unity, OAU. By then, more than two-thirds of the continent had achieved independence, mostly from imperial European states. So how has the AU held its own accountable for its governance in member states? We have some answers from the AU's Director of Political Affairs, Dr. Kabeli Matulosa, and let's listen to him.
No, the AU has made enormous progress in assisting its member states deal with electoral violence. You know, take for example, you know, in the late 80s, in the early 90s, up to 2000 or thereabout, a number of our countries were marred by electoral violence. You'll remember. Sure. You remember. A number of our countries were marred by electoral violence, and the worst that we saw was, in fact, in 2007, 2008 in Kenya. You remember that incident. Mm-hmm. The AU intervened in Kenya. The AU intervened and assisted the Kenyan people to deal with that situation. And Kenya, I must tell you now, Kenya has turned the corner. Kenya had held its previous election in 2013, which was very peaceful and credible, due to AU efforts. And the AU, even in that election, assisted Kenya. And Kenya was assisted in the transition, even through going through constitutional review and the referendum of 2010. And 2013 election was very peaceful, was very, very peaceful. Now, so I'm trying to indicate that the AU is making its modest contribution. And the way we're doing that is in different ways. One, we have improved our election observation process in a big way, and this has contributed to scaling down the electoral violence on our continent. Second, we have introduced mediation as a tool also to deal with to strengthen our conflict prevention mechanism. You'll know that we have the AU has its own panel of the wise that we deploy in some of these conflictual situations, deal with prevention of crisis. And panel of the wise, also we work together with besides panel of the wise, we also work together with the Africa Forum of Heads of State, former heads of state and government, which is based in Pretoria. So these bodies have really helped a lot in terms of preventing electoral violence on the continent. As we say, prevention is better than cure. So we're better off investing more and more in prevention. So
finally, you disagree with those who think that the AU is a laid-back, union? I
totally disagree, but I will not say that we're a perfect organization, but I disagree that it can be perceived as a lame duck. It can be perceived as a lame duck or a toothless bulldog. The taste of the pudding is in the eating. Let's look at
people beside Zimbabwe, Uganda, where you have leaders perpetuating themselves in power, with the AU just watching on.
No, the AU has a very strong normative framework on constitutional amendments. I think you should check a document called the African Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance. Okay. Check that document. Check Article 23.
What does it say?
It says it is very clear on what the AU perceives as unconstitutional change of government, including manipulation, quote unquote, manipulation of constitutions.
That's just you perceiving, but not putting any action behind that.
There's action that is always put behind it. Take for example, the recent case of an unconstitutional was Madagascar. Madagascar was sanctioned. Madagascar was suspended from the AU. We had also a case of Egypt, which has also put on sanctions. So we can back up this normative framework that has been taken.
But would
Meanwhile, the Socialist Forum of Ghana says the continent's political freedom has failed to translate into economic independence and continental self-sufficiency as the African people are asking for. In the studio with me is Dr. David Percy. He's a member of the research committee of the Socialist Forum. He's here to tell us more. So, Dr. Percy, thanks for coming.
My pleasure.
All right. You heard what he spoke about, Doctor.
Yes. It was instructive that Dr. Matlosa, right?
Yes, Dr.
Led off with
Matlosa.
talk about dealing with electoral violence.
And I could see you smiling about that.
Yes, you know. But all Africans have a common heritage of enslavement, European domination, colonization, and have gone through struggles to achieve political independence. And that was necessary because politics must take the lead in dealing with every social issue. But the political independence, above all, was to provide a basis for taking charge of our lives, of our economies. And thus far, we failed to do that. We've entered a new phase of, incidentally, you've misspelled my name, but it's often done. It's P-E-S-S-E-Y. I can see that on the screen.
Okay.
We fail to translate that leaders and peoples to build on the political independence, which was merely to give us space to address the most urgent task at hand, which was taking charge of our lives.
And that we did.
We haven't done that yet. We haven't done that yet, unfortunately.
Politically, some would argue that politically
I'm saying that political space, political independence is important. You must take the lead. It's a necessary condition. It is not a sufficient condition. Purpose was to provide us space to take charge of our lives, that is, of our economies. And I was making the point that thus far we have failed to do that.
Okay, so Dr. Percy, what do you think the AU can do then? Or what do you think that as Africans we must do to take charge of our lives in the economic sense?
AU Day is important, not least because it gives us an opportunity to take stock, to come to grips with the historical tasks that lie before us, okay? To take stock of how much we have done in that context and to recognize how much more there needs to be done. Okay, so if for nothing, the day has value. So also is the AU itself. But thus far, the AU has remained an organization of leaders, not even the business elite. Think in terms of African unity. So the AU remains, so thus far, a club of heads of states.
In other words, you're saying they're dysfunctional?
No, I'm saying that it is far from reaching the reason for its formation.
So they are not functional. They are not performing the function for which they were set up.
No. It's work in progress, right? Okay.
But you don't like the pace.
It has been very, very slow, okay? And to a certain extent, the path that we are treading is not likely to lead us to where we want to go.
Okay. But Doc, the Socialist Forum released a statement earlier this weekend, and let me just read an excerpt of it. You say that as Europe, America, and Asia continue to make revolutionary breakthroughs in scientific and technological development, Africa remains stagnant in close proximity to the Stone Age. A lot of people think this is too exaggerated, and that's the problem some people think they have with socialists. You're too exaggerated. To call Africa a nation, or well, and a group of people who are in close proximity to the Stone Age, isn't that too exaggerated?
In a certain sense, no. We are consumers of technology by and large. Okay, our elites are up there with the latest trends. Okay, but they preside over economies, largely at the behest of others. And that is the nub of the problem.
Okay, so what do you recommend to the African Union? Today is AU Day, and so as a researcher and as a member of the Socialist Forum, what are your recommendations? What are those things that you think they would see to help the continent of Africa move at that pace or on that path that you think would lead us to meet the desired results for which the AU was formed?
Well, actually, if I have recommendations, it is for the African peoples primarily.
Okay.
Because the movement for unity must become theirs, right? Until it becomes theirs, it is going nowhere. It remains a club of presidents and prime ministers and leaders, right? It has to translate and reflect in the concerns, the day-to-day concerns of the guy on the Mamobe Trotro, right? And that hasn't yet to happen. Now, before we started this conversation, we were talking about the hectic nature of the run-up to the elections, right?
Yes.
But in Ghana and in much of Africa, a lot of the buzz and excitement is essentially electing leaders, or it's basically a contest between who would best preserve and protect the interests of foreign principles rather than our collective. That is the crux of the problem. That we have dealt with colonialism formally, apart from the Saudi Arab thing. There's hardly any on the African continent. We are in a new phase of new colonialism. We have a flag, we have an anthem, we elect our presidents, but by and large, their focus, they take their marching orders from others and work, whether consciously or unconsciously, against our collective interests. Now, in any other place, in any age, among any other peoples, where the elites and leaders work to betray our collective interests, it is called treason. Right?
Yes, it is.
And treason is punished by death. Unfortunately, in our case, we celebrate those who regularly lead us and betray our interests.
So you're calling this AU Day that members of African countries
if I have a call to make, it's the Ghanaian working people, it's the African working people, because you know, it is people who make leaders.
Okay.
Right?
So our focus should be on making the right leaders.
When the people move, leaders move. I'm sure you know that as well.
Sir.
Yes. So it is for people to recognize that the task at hand is far from being done, that there can be no way back to the colonial slave house. Okay, it was for good reason that, for instance, Nkrumah made a statement that we prefer freedom in danger to servitude in tranquility.
All right, Doc. Thank you very much.
And so we must remind ourselves on this day of the most pressing and urgent tasks: taking back our lives, taking back control of our economies. Then we can begin to address the problems of poverty, of indebtedness, of underdevelopment, and misery.
Okay, and then for you, that will be the right way to getting ourselves on that right path to be able to. It has to be
a movement of the
perform.
African peoples
Doc.
who come to correctly understand where we have come from, and therefore our collective tasks.
Thank you very much, Doc. And
my pleasure.
It's a very interesting conversation going on here, but we have to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll bring you some stories on business. Please stay on.